All right, guys, we are live on YouTube. This is the Shillin' and Duffy Sherdog recap show. We're recapping UFC 264 that just went down in Vegas, ended about 15 minutes ago. Absolute loaded card. We'll get right into it. I'm your host. My name is Keith Shillin. I'm a writer for Sherdog.com. Joining me, as always, is the the senior editor. I apologize. I almost gave you a promotion. It's a wild night. The senior editor of Sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. What a wild ride, wasn't it?
Yeah,
What else to say?
Yeah, we got a lot of things to talk about. If you're watching now live on YouTube, we asked you guys to, join us, make comments. We try to read the comments. We try to interact as much as possible. It's a much better show when people are talking with us. So please do that. So let's get right into it. Main event, the notorious Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. We had it 1-1 heading into the third round. We were split. You picked Dustin Poirier. I picked Conor McGregor. You were right. I was wrong. Dustin Poirier won by first round doctor stoppage in between the first round and the second round. The first round ended. Conor McGregor, it looks like he might have broke his leg or broke his ankle. I'm not really sure. I'm not a doctor. Today I was thinking about all the things that were going on with this fight. And I literally thought to myself, what if MMA happens tonight? What if the weird things that happen in MMA happen? Like, what if I never thought of a broken leg or checked leg or whatever you want to say. I was thinking about, what if it's an eye poke? What if it's a groin strike? What if it's a disqualification by punches to the back? What if it's something? And MMA breaks our heart like it's always. Not necessarily. No, I want to back up. I am not. On no means am I saying that Dustin Poirier didn't win this fair and square. So get that right away. I am saying he definitely won this fair and square. Dustin Poirier won the trilogy. I really don't believe there needs to be a fourth fight. So I'll throw that right out there. But it still got to leave a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth, right?
Obviously it leaves a very bad taste in McGregor's mouth. And I imagine that Poirier would rather have had a quote-unquote clean win over this guy that's been tormenting him. But even if right now, and forgive me if I'm jumping ahead of us here, but even if right now he's just like, I want to put this trilogy behind me and go on and do the next thing, I imagine that either before or after his title shot, and by the way, at the post-fight presser, Dana White did just say that Poirier versus Oliveira is next.
Well, yeah, there's no way Poirier versus McGregor is next unless you want to wait. We could be looking at 12 months. We could be looking at 18 months. I mean, it could be a really long. I mean, Conor McGregor is always notorious for taking long. Hold on, let me back up. Other than his historic rise to the title, after he won the title, there was big jumps of time where he was inactive. I mean, think about how inactive he's been in the last couple of years. But now you add in a devastating injury, one that we've seen guys come back from, and it's been extremely long layoffs. Not a good night. So let's get into the actual action.
Okay.
We've broke it down a million ways. There was a million ways people broke down what was going to happen and how Poirier could win again, how Conor could win again. I thought the first half of the round, I thought it was a good showing from both guys. I thought Conor had a really good strategy. I like that Conor was flipping the script, going after the legs of Poirier. He was being very aggressive, which we expected Conor to be very aggressive. But really, one of the narratives heading into this fight was Conor needs to kick more. Well, that happened right away. I think he opened up about 2 or 3 spinning kicks to the stomach, really went down to the legs. Actually, a couple times buckled Poirier's legs. I really like that. But you can't just beat Poirier's body. You have to beat him mentally, and that just wasn't the case. Poirier stayed composed, got into grappling exchanges, and I thought Conor, and I don't know why I feel like a broken record, jumping guard is so risky, and I feel like we've come to the point in MMA where it's a bigger risk than reward. Agree or disagree?
Completely agree. The grabbing a guillotine and jumping guard as a method of basically takedown defense or takedown salvaging, I think that's pretty far outdated in this sport. And I'm not saying that as like a jujitsu wizard. I'm saying that as somebody who's been watching the sport for many years and has seen when it used to kind of work and now that it just flat out doesn't. It's ironic that it was McGregor who did it to Poirier, since that's one of the few kind of poor fight IQ tendencies that Poirier still has at this point in his career.
That's right.
He will still do that. But no, instead it was McGregor who did it. And even later in the ground exchange, McGregor, rather than scramble up, kind of scrambled partway up and tried to slap another guillotine on him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was a lot of moments where Conor just made like really head scratching moments. Like there was one moment where he kind of pushed Poirier away from him, had enough space where all he had to do was cut his hips and he starts to scramble and he can use that, get back to his feet. But he didn't. He was willing to stay on his back. Looked like he was trying to almost maybe throw up a triangle choke from the bottom or those hammer fists. Like he's landing some hammer fists from the bottom. And yeah, you can hit 3 or 4 hammer fists and they look good and the crowd really enjoyed it. But you're letting Poirier gain his base and then he's dropping down. Heavy elbows, ground and pound. I was saying to my friends, Herb D might stop this already. Like with the hard ground and pound. Like, what is Conor doing? Like, you can't stay here. And you know, I kept thinking of, imagine if Poirier can finish Conor on the ground with ground and pound right now when Khabib couldn't. It took him all the way to the 4th round to finish Conor. I said, can imagine the feather in the cap Poirier would have had then.
Yeah, but as it is, you seem to agree with me that the round was going very, very much in Poirier's favor, especially the second half of the round. Once it hit the ground, it was, it would have been a weird stoppage, but certainly not even the weirdest stoppage on the night.
Yeah.
Poirier was looking great.
Shout out to our boy Bass, he's in the chat. He's here every week. He's fantastic. He mentioned Greg. We're gonna get to Greg Hardy for sure. Shout out to Alan McDonald. Talked about being weird. I think not only is it jumping guillotine weird, but it was weird from who it came from. Like you mentioned, Dustin Poirier, wouldn't shock me, Dustin Poirier, but more, Conor's not known for his jiu-jitsu. You know, we've never seen him get a submission in the UFC. I don't really know off the top of my head if he's got a submission, on the regional scene, Cage Warriors, something like that. I don't know. But, it's not really his game. Now, if Gilbert Burn jumped guillotine on Stephen Thompson, okay. Or someone like that. But Ryan Hall tried it. That's different, but not Conor. To me, he actually had a lot of success in the clinch in the second fight against Poirier. That's why it would surprise me that he wasn't willing to fight off that position, digging underhook, kind of back up. He was muscling Poirier in the second fight, hitting those, shoulder strikes and inside boxing. Like, I thought it was an area for him, and it was just so surprising. And I don't know. Like, there's a lot of questions. What would have happened if Conor didn't get hurt? How would have the rest of the fight went on? But historically, Conor has gotten worse as fights gone deeper. Obviously he won the Diaz fight in the 5-round fight. But, I mean, generally speaking, he tends to fade. Like, I wasn't feeling better. Like, the round end, now Conor's going to get him. Like, I felt worse.
Right. And I wouldn't say that even that McGregor's cardio is bad. It's just that the guys that have beaten have been cardio absolute machines. I mean, you're talking Khabib, Poirier, well, not that it got into the cardio rounds, and Diaz. So I think his gas is fine. It's just that he's such a fast starter that the rest of it almost has to seem like a little bit of a letdown compared to that, whereas Poirier is a builder.
Let me ask you this. If the fight didn't end there, how would you have scored the first round? Would you have given it 10-8? Was it enough?
Well, if what we saw at the end of the round wasn't an ankle break, but just another clean knockdown, then yeah, probably.
Yeah, I agree. If you could see that was a knockdown, yeah, absolutely, I agree. Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, if the round ended at 4:45 instead of 5, just we fast forwarded and that whole last 15 seconds is gone, so it kind of ends when they get back up to their feet. Probably still a 10-9.
Yeah.
But a 10-9, but I would have been looking real hard at the live odds for a finish by Poirier in the second round.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It was definitely going the way of Dustin Poirier. Let's talk about Dustin Poirier for a second. Like, I'm pulling up his Fight Finder, and guys, if you ever want to know someone's record, go over to Sherdog.com. That's SHERDOG. And there's a Fight Finder. It's the original Fight Finder. It's where you get all the good info.
Now, having said that, if you're watching this right now and you needed Keith to spell Sherdog for you, punch yourself in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we only got it in like 1 or 2 spots. I would just do it just in case someone puts that SURE. But this is the guy that has now won 8 out of his last 9 fights. His only loss being to Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's got the trilogy on Conor McGregor. He's got wins over Dan Hooker, Max Holloway, twice over Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Anthony Pettis. When we talk about the greatest fighters of all time, where does Poirier rank?
Just flat out greatest of all time?
Yeah, I'm not saying he's the greatest. I mean,
no, but like just not even talking about like
not even lightweight. I was gonna say lightweight, then I was gonna say he's got to be number 2 at least.
I don't know if I'd put him as high as number 2, like overall, regardless of weight class.
No, I'm saying at number 2 at lightweight. I'm saying
at lightweight, he's certainly.
He's got to be, right?
I mean, Khabib's got to be first at this point. And yeah, you know what? Gun to my head right now, it's Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's other guys, Frankie Edgar and Benson Henderson and BJ Penn, and there's other guys that come. But I mean, I don't want to have that conversation. But I want to just talk about overall. Like, is this a guy that, Bass is saying around 11 to 15? Does that feel right for Dustin Poirier? Like just outside the top 10?
Without starting to write down names on a piece of paper, I'd probably put him around 15.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Is he the highest ranked fighter who never won a UFC title? And obviously that is still, and when I say never, I mean the official UFC title. I know he was the interim champion before someone said, actually hold the title undisputed. Is he highest one ever?
Are the Fedor fanboys going to come get me if I say yes?
No, obviously. No, sorry. I should have said who actually fought in the UFC. I should have.
And I would be willing to go to bat for somebody like Poirier that's having an incredible historic run but hasn't won an undisputed title yet, even over someone like Fedor who did that incredible body of work, but did it in pride, where he was fighting legend, contender, joke, legend, contender, joke, and that was kind of the pattern. I'd probably put him, maybe he'd end up as high as 11 if I started doing the math, but certainly no lower than 15 at this point. It is an absolute murderer's row of fighters that he's been facing. And really it goes back even further than that. I mean, all the way back to his couple of fights in the WEC. He's been fighting contenders for like 12 or 13 years straight. The one knock against Khabib Nurmagomedov, and again, I still think he's probably the greatest lightweight ever, is that he only really started fighting the best of the best of the best in like his last 8 or 9 fights.
Yeah, that's right.
When Dustin Poirier was, when he was in the WEC and then, came over to the UFC, that was a time when Khabib was still beating 1 and 4 guys in in Uzbekistan.
Yeah, Dustin Poirier fought Max Holloway in 2012, first time.
Yeah,
that's I feel like when we think about Dustin Poirier, if you asked me before this fight, where's Dustin Poirier, I'd say maybe top 25, maybe top 30. And it's just one of these guys, when you look at his hit list, it's absolutely incredible. And I feel like that my attitude towards him sums up him just in general. He's a guy that's always been overlooked, always kind of doesn't get the credit he deserves. And then even when he has a moment like this, second win over Conor, he still doesn't even have like a clean win. He didn't put him out on a knockout. He didn't win a clear-cut decision. He didn't submit him. There's still going to be debate. Wow, was that just a freak injury? What did, is this check and kick? Does that really work? There's going to be people debating this. There's still people out there who think that Sean O'Malley should be undefeated. Because of a similar, leg injury, and I just feel bad for the dude. Like, this should have been his moment to be like, when Chuck Liddell beat Randy Couture, in the third fight, and oh man, now I'm ahead of him all time. One of these, and no, he's got Conor standing there yelling at him. It's not over yet.
Conor's reactions were very telling. When we did the preview on Wednesday, I went on a long and probably unnecessary and unprompted rant about how I really believe that it's not just about the money and the fame with McGregor, that he cares about greatness. Like, he cares about believing he's great, and he cares about being perceived as great. Because what did you hear out of him before anything else? It's a doctor stoppage, right? It's a doctor stoppage.
That's right. He didn't want to give.
He wanted to make sure it didn't just go down as a flat out TKO. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, like it's so
And
it's
that was the last like humanly acceptable or respectable thing he said from there until when I like closed my browser window. It was all downhill from there.
yeah, it's tough when he's got the real thick Irish accent. He's got he's breathing hard because he just fought 5 minute fight. He's swearing. It's very hard to understand what he was saying. But um, let's talk about Conor for a second. So he's the biggest star in the history of the sport. My phone was blown up today during the fight, before the fight. My phone was blown up this week. Oh, who should I bet on? You know, thanks guys. Thanks guys for watching our show. But all the fanboys, all the casuals, all those guys all came out. But if you've ordered a Conor McGregor pay per view, his last five pay per views, and so I'm counting the Floyd Mayweather, you've seen him lose 4 out of 5 fights.
Yep.
When does he stop becoming a draw? Will he always be a draw? Like this, and when I mean draw, I mean make a draw. I'm not talking about, can he headline a pay per view? I mean like where my friends are normally don't watch fights are getting around and ordering the fight.
I think he has a certain amount of staying power that it won't be completely win and loss proof, but a lot more than most other fighters. The fact that he has like a national identity wrapped up in this, it helps. It helps that he has Ireland behind him. I mean, there were thousands of people that traveled to Vegas again to see him fight a guy again that knocked him out 6 months ago, just knowing that their trip could very easily end in just another really kind of disappointing outcome. I like if McGregor, obviously at this point he's going in for surgery tomorrow. I'm sure we'll know more this coming week, but on the assumption that he's not going to fight until well into next year, whatever he fights next will probably be the biggest pay-per-view of next year too.
Yeah, and that's going to be the story now. The comeback, the breaking the leg, recovering. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So I agree, but I disagree a little bit. Like if he does have to win. So if I was running the UFC, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do next with them, and the actual person he's going to fight. But I'm just thinking for a second, like if I'm running the UFC, I'm giving him some softballs, and I'm hiding like fights that you and me are upset about because we understand that it's softballs, but the casual fan doesn't. I'm giving him like a series of softballs.
I would be fine with that, but who and how do they build it? Like, are they going to put him on top of a pay-per-view card?
Yeah,
he almost has to headline pay-per-views.
Yeah,
you're going to have him like headline a pay-per-view against, I don't even know what a softball for him would be. Like, I was about to throw out a name like, Diego Ferreira or something, but that's not necessarily a softball for him.
Yeah, like Diego Sanchez. Like, I'm talking softballs. Like, he's going to win spectacular and people don't know any better.
Boz says it's got to be Nate now.
Yeah, we're going to get to the actual name, and that's the name that's going to be, like, but I'm just saying, like, if I ran the UFC, like, I would really try to bring him back by getting him 2 or 3 wins in a row over guys that Tony Ferguson now. I mean, that seems a much easier fight than it used to be. But we'll talk about the actual fight for a second. As Bass just says, Tony Ferguson. So he's out for a long time. Is Conor McGregor still a top level fighter? And I know it's tough because when you face a guy like Dustin Poirier, you lose to Dustin Poirier. Well, yeah, you lost to Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier is one of the top 10 pound fighters in the world. But is Conor McGregor still one of the top 25 talents in the UFC?
I don't know if he's one of the top 25 talents in the UFC. I think he is still. I think he's still a top 10 quality lightweight.
Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of ranked lightweights in the UFC that he would knock their block off. The things that Dustin Poirier and Khabib Nurmagomedov have done to him aren't paths to victory that just anybody can replicate.
Yeah.
You can't go, hey, Khabib Nurmagomedov is a great lockdown wrestler. Gregor Gillespie is a great lockdown wrestler. Gillespie could just,
Yeah.
Get heavy on top on Conor. No, Conor would knock him silly.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, all of a sudden, look who believes in Gregor Gillespie.
No, I've never hated that guy, but that's a different story. Shout out to Sydney. Yeah, Sydney, I want to understand what you're talking about.
Yep.
That has those technical things have nothing to do with me and Ben. So
we're with
we'll
you,
pass it along, man. Yeah,
we'll pass it up the ladder.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think Conor's still a top 10 talent. If he can still stand with anybody. Yeah. So coming back from an injury, though, is he a top? First of all, let me ask you: does he come back? Because it's easy for him to say, "This is a guy who's talked about retirement multiple times. This is a guy who has got more money than there is in the world. This guy is set for many generations. Is it worth going through this huge rehab? Is it worth, getting back? Like, will Conor, like, that actually is a serious question. Will Conor ever return after this? And I know I'm putting you on a spot here because we don't know the full extent to the injury.
It's a good question. Oh, shout out John A. I know who you are, but I don't know if you're like being like sneaky online and like hiding your real name from people. So I won't dox you. What's next for Conor? That's what we're talking about right now, brother.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go back to the whole thing of pride and ego. And I'm not even saying that in a negative way. Like, there's plenty of negative pride and ego stuff to say about Conor, but saying that he doesn't want this to be the way he left the sport, I think there's some validity to that.
I agree.
I think he's going to go rehab, go, spend some time away. He'll have to, and realize, hey, you know what? I still feel pretty good. I don't want to leave on this humiliating loss to a guy who I hate his guts and he hates my guts, and he won the trilogy.
Yeah.
I think he's going to want to come back.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I agree with that. Like, he had this historic rise like Ronda Rousey, but I think I had some friends over watching the fights with me, and I don't want to pick on him. He's a casual fan, but I don't want to pick on him. But he said, "Oh, he kind of reminds me of Ronda Rousey. He let the limelight and all this and I don't even believe that about Ronda Rousey, just the record. But I don't think Ronda was okay with leaving the sport on a loss. I don't see Conor doing that either. I agree. I don't think he can swallow it. I think he cares more about his legacy than Ronda ever did.
Yep.
Obviously, that could be true, could not be true. But then he has opportunities that a lot of fighters don't have. Like, for example, you turn to him and say, hey, you can make just amount of money doing boxing, and guess what? Your legs don't matter as much. You don't have to worry about checking kicks. You don't have to worry about, throwing kicks. And we can get you a fight with insert top name boxer who you still got to make a lot of money. Manny Pacquiao, Shane Mosley. I don't know. I'm not a boxing guy.
There's even built-in drama there because like Manny Pacquiao and Dustin Poirier have been working together on all these charity projects.
There you go. Like, you box somebody. Maybe box Dustin Poirier.
Well, and I pointed out on the preview, if he decides to go the celebrity boxing route, he's one of those rare people that, depending on who they pair him with, he can play either side of that coin.
Yeah.
Like, if they have him box, Jake Paul, he's the real fighter. If they have him box, Keith Thurman or somebody, he's the celebrity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he'd probably make just an amount of money, if not more money, doing that. So that's an option. And then we saw what the WWE went after Ronda Rousey. I mean, Conor's even better on the mic. All right, so the time is officially 1:29. We finally got Bass to say KB Bueller. We're almost 30 minutes into the show, and he finally gave us a KB Bueller shout out. But you know what I mean? Like, I could see that WWE want him in a heartbeat. He's great on the mic. He's athletic. He can sell. Why not that?
The only thing I'd say is I wonder if he'd even be interested in it.
Yeah, I don't know.
With the opportunities he's had thrown his way, just my thought is, if he had any interest in it, he would have done it already. And he also doesn't like to do anything unless he can do it big. Like,
Well,
I don't think he would have crossed over to try boxing at all unless he could have gotten one of about 3 names, and he did.
but how about this? I know WWE is much different than when I was a little kid and I was watching Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. You know, it's now they have their stars show up twice a year. You know, Brock Lesnar barely wrestles. Rock shows up. What about something like that where he shows up WrestleMania, goes against, I don't know who's around, Shawn Michaels, or I'm showing my age. Who's this? I don't know. Who's this?
Naming all these 90s wrestlers.
Who's this? I don't know. I don't. You guys, you think I don't know anything about boxing? I know even less about wrestling, pro wrestling. But insert whoever the star guy is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ronda named herself after Roddy Piper. She always wanted to do WWE at some point. And Ronda is a big woman. Like, I don't mean she's a big woman, but you know, she is above average height and above average weight. Conor would look ridiculous like wrestling Brock Lesnar. Like, Conor's shorter and weighs less than CM Punk.
Sure,
and CM Punk was
that makes sense. The top girls in WWE are still what,
5'8", 140 pounds.
Yeah, so she's the same size as them. But is there a lighter weight division? Is there I don't know. Is it like, who was the little guy with the mask, the Mexican guy with the mask? He was smaller, wasn't he?
Rey Mysterio Jr.
Rey Mysterio, yeah. Is he still around?
Rey Mysterio is actually about Conor's size. He is, but he's like 45 years old.
Oh, so that but is there is there a younger version of there's no young guy like that? All right, let's move on. Neither one of us know enough about wrestling. Anybody knows wrestling? Help me out. Am I way out of line? But maybe he fights. Like, he doesn't fight a wrestler. He fights. Like, I know Vince McMahon's too old, but when Vince McMahon used to wrestle, you fight. Is there like a guy like that, like a commissioner guy, like who's kind of small, like you know what I mean, like the president or something?
Yeah, McMahon is jacked too.
I don't know. So all right, enough of the wrestling. He's 32 years old, too. He comes back. He's 33, maybe 34.
He's 32, but he's like Francisco Trinaldo. His face looks like 15 years older than his body.
Yeah. Is there any other fight to do for the first fight back than the Diaz fight? Like, that has to be the fight, right? If he comes back.
Put odds on it, I would take Diaz over the field. Just
it has to be.
It's the perfect combination of it's going to sell tickets. It is. I'm not going to say it's low risk, but it's manageable risk. There's no other fight they can make for him with the right combination of sellability, winnability, and not being a complete farce. Like I say, if they put him against like an unranked or borderline lightweight, well, yeah, it's that guy's luckiest day, but it becomes hard to justify it as a pay-per-view headliner. Hey, we've got our biggest superstar on the back of a bunch of losses fighting a guy that's obviously a setup for him to win. You know, there's not even a B-side to that fight.
Yeah, like even during his rise, and you threw in like a Dennis Seaver when he was probably at that point already the biggest star in the. I mean, Ronda Rousey was still around the same time, but you know, the biggest male version at that time. You know, throwing in Dennis Seaver, it seemed like the progressive steps. Like it was going. I think it was from Poirier to Seaver. Didn't seem it was around the same range. If he went way down to, like I said, a Diego Sanchez, like this is what I would do anyways if I'm running the UFC. But yeah, the Diaz fight, obviously, that's the only fight that makes sense to me, that sells. It still pleases the hardcore fans. It pleases the casual fans. That's it. There's no. Maybe RDA, because they had a little backstage, skirmish this week. There's, the backstory of them supposed to fight for the title.
Yeah. I mean, there is Kris Moutinho. He's shown his willingness to step up in weight,
That's right.
So we'll talk about that fight in a little bit, but I think RDA would be a rough look for Conor McGregor.
Yeah. A guy who likes to kick legs, historically, a guy who likes to take the fight to the ground. He's a little past his prime, so I mean, he could, at any time he could really fall off. But I thought that was a tough fight for him 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dustin Poirier, because again, we overlooked Dustin Poirier, the winner. I mean, it's title fight, obviously, right? There's nothing else. But is there any other
Dana
option?
White said it. I don't think there's any other viable option. I mean, just the fact that they haven't fought each other yet.
Yeah.
Like, we're so lucky that they didn't fight each other like because if they fought each other like 6 or 7 years ago, there'd be such a question mark over it. Like, what if Poirier completely destroyed this man 6 or 7 years ago? But now you can point to, yeah, but that was kind of like head case, couldn't decide on a weight class. Oliveira, who was a terrible striker at the time, he is a completely different fighter now. And we'd have to be like, well, should we run it back? Now, there's no question. Let's have this fight. It is at its best buy date right now.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying there. Poirier obviously continually gets overlooked. He's going to fight Charles Oliveira next. Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. How does that sell? Does Poirier get any kind of bump?
I think Poirier gets a bump from this. I think.
Can he get a Diaz bump? Sorry to interrupt you. Can he get a Diaz bump? Can he become that popular?
I don't think he can get a Diaz bump. He doesn't offer easy sound bites because all McGregor really gave Diaz was a bigger microphone and a win.
Yeah.
Like the legend of Diaz was made when they started jawing at each other, and there was finally somebody who could match wits with, they could match wits with McGregor. Like playing touch putt with that dork in the park. I still laugh when I think of Portel. Just that, and the fact that he actually beat him and was competitive the second time is what vaulted Diaz from hardcore fan delight to every fan delight.
Yeah. I remember when the news broke, and I was, I don't know, maybe 3 p.m. or something. I remember being like, at that time, Diaz just beat Michael Johnson. He did that historic call out of Conor McGregor, but it was still kind of like, at that time, it was still like, come on, dude, you beat Michael Johnson. You kind of, wasn't that long ago, you got knocked out by Josh Thompson. And it wasn't a fight that I was like, oh, really? And then that very first press conference in that like gymnasium thing they had going, and then it was like, oh no, yeah, like exactly what he was saying. Like, when Conor's saying that, he makes gang signs in one hand and balloon animals. Yeah, like those little sound bites. And then Diaz with the moment, I'm not surprised when he beat him and all that. Yeah. Poirier will definitely get a bump for this, but he didn't completely seize the moment.
No,
but that's just not him. It's just not him. Like you can't. He couldn't. There's nothing he could have done, because if he came off more trash talking, or he came off as fake, or pushed too hard, like what can you do?
Yeah, I think Poirier is what he is at this point from like a fame standpoint. Just he's a good guy. Who, I mean, he's fine talking on the mic. He's a comfortable speaker, which didn't used to be the case. He used you could tell he hated it. And now, he's genial. He's occasionally funny. He'll say a few badass things. The guy he really reminds me of in terms of personality and the development of his personality over the years is Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler, back in his 20s, you could tell that he hated doing interviews. Like, he was polite, he was professional, but he just didn't have anything to say. So it was all 3-word answers. And then, he got a little bit of seasoning. As he got older into his career, I think started feeling a little more grateful for the opportunities, and would still say some really cold-blooded shit like, I wouldn't have taken his neck, I would have taken his soul type things. That's the trajectory for Poirier. The interesting thing to see when Poirier and Oliveira line up is, and I'm calling this now, I think Charles Oliveira is going to end up being a surprisingly sellable champion if he keeps winning, even though he speaks basically no English and makes no real attempt to, even though he looks like a Bond villain, with like his suits and his like unnaturally white teeth and his shades all the time. Like he's a weird dude, but he's a weird dude, and his fights are just all
fun,
just blistering to watch. Right. Like, win or lose, he's always been like appointment viewing.
There's no way Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira is a boring fight.
No, Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira, not only is it not a boring fight, it is, it's a instant fight of the year candidate, and almost no outcome would surprise me.
When we talk about Poirier getting above, I feel it's more like a Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, and I know I keep comparing Ronda and Conor, where Holm became a lot more popular. She started getting some title fights and main events that she probably didn't deserve, later on, just because of beating Ronda Rousey and people know her name. But she didn't become the star that she could have been. Like, she could have been a bigger star after that moment. I feel the same way with Poirier.
No, and you're absolutely right, and it's for a lot of the same reasons. Like, she's pleasant, but I mean, she's not a sizzling soundbite. She's attractive, for what that's worth. But she's not like the people don't have posters of her up the way they did like Paige Van Zandt, even though Van Zandt's accomplishments were like this compared to Holmes.
Yeah. I feel like now that he's won the trilogy and there's some controversy and this and that, like the UFC PR team needs to push this guy. Like he needs the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks to be everywhere.
Well,
like
Conor's going to do his part in making Poirier more popular and more famous because he will not be able to shut up about this.
Yeah, but it's got to be beyond Twitter. It's got to be beyond them two chatting on Twitter. Like when a movie comes out, Tom Cruise and Ed Norton, whoever the big star of the movie is, they do their rounds. They're on the Today Show. They're in Good Morning America. They're on Jimmy Fallon, whatever. Like the UFC needs to push these guys. If it's SportsCenter, if it's even third on, I don't know. Jimmy Fallon has Tom Cruise and then some Kardashian and then Poirier on the show. Like even if it's but just get on these things. Like push this guy hard, and get him out there. Get him on. Get him interviewed by Colin Cowherd this week. Get him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like he needs to do the rounds.
I completely agree. That's something the UFC can do. I mean, they've succeeded at it before. I agree with that as well.
Not everybody. Like not every pay per view. You're not going to get Juan Vahovich on the Today Show. Sure, but you can get him maybe a sit down interview on SportsCenter. Like this, but Poirier, you just beat Conor McGregor. You can get that bump beyond. You can have him on, get an interview by Stephen A. Smith and whoever, the Hollywood people.
Yeah, well, I mean, the same way Diaz and Masvidal started being able to do after like their respective breakouts. I think they could do that with Poirier, absolutely.
And he accomplished more than both those guys.
Easily.
Yeah. Got to give him credit too. He took a chance by fighting Conor before fighting for the title. Then he took a chance by saying he's going to do it again and win the trilogy. Like you got to give him credit for that. I mean, it wasn't exactly how he wants it, but definitely a lot of credit.
Called a shot, bet on himself, and I mean not literally bet on himself. We're not talking about Justin James, sure. But he bet on himself in that this fight. He said flat out, he's like, this fight is going to make me two or three times more money than a title shot would have, but it would have cost him the title shot if he'd lost.
That's
he bet
right.
on himself and he won.
And he took the gamble twice, 2 in a row.
Yep.
Like, we're talking about how good of a fighter he is, and he hasn't even won a UFC title yet. We're saying top 11, top 15, whatever, pretty incredible. And he might be a little low. Sometimes when you do those rankings without actually writing down the names, you forget about people. But Dustin Poirier, just a great dude. Good moment. Last question, we got to move on. We're almost 45 minutes in. And I knew we'd spend the most time talking about this, and we'll talk about the main event a little bit more at the end. But Poirier, Charles Oliveira, who would be the favorite right now? I'm sure there might be a money line out there already, but who would you think would be the favorite? Not saying, this is not you making a pick, just who you think.
No, I would say when it is officially announced, Poirier opens as a slight favorite.
Yeah, I agree. Bigger name.
And actually, he's a pretty moderate favorite. He is right now around minus 140. Like FanDuel is offering odds on them if they make it. Yeah, he's a slight moderate favorite.
I think that's about exactly where I would have thought. Maybe a little closer, maybe 120, 130. But yeah, negative 140. I get that. Yeah. Do we have the awards yet?
Yes, we do.
All right.
Not going to make you happy.
Let me guess. Let me guess. Hold on. Let me guess. I always like to guess them. I'm not looking. I don't have it in front of me. Performance of the night, Tuivasa.
Yes.
You said it's not going to make me happy, so I can't think they give the fight of the night to. O'Malley and Moutinho probably get something. That's the fight of the night, which wasn't really much of a fight. I mean, it was one-sided. And the other performance has to be – it's going to be probably Poirier, what it probably shouldn't be. It probably should be – well, Aldana's not eligible. Duplessis. How do I say his name?
Yep, it's Duplessis, I believe.
That's who they won?
Yep, Tuivasa and Duplessis were the performance of the nights.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I'm fine with both
Why'd you
of
say I
those.
wasn't going to be happy?
Because fight of the night was a complete shellacking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But what would have been? What do you think should have been?
Price versus Pereira.
Yeah. You know what else was good? Griffin and Condit.
Griffin and Condit was really good too. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised Price, because Price and Pereira had those big moments. Well, Condit and Griffin didn't have huge moments, but
yeah. I hope, and we'll talk about his fight probably an hour from now. But I hope Jamagulov got like a little envelope of cash too, because that was a gnarly submission. But we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Let's move on to the co-main event. Gilbert Burns versus Stevie Thompson. They really booked this as style versus styles, and all the time that doesn't happen when it's style versus style. This time it really was.
Yep.
On the feet, they were standing striking. Thompson was having his way. When hit the ground, Burns was having his way, and it kind of reminded me of the old school grappler beat striker.
Absolutely, and you and I both picked Thompson in this one. I not only picked Thompson, I thought Thompson was going to make it look kind of easy. I underestimated Burns' takedown entries. He is an explosive cat.
He really is. I mean, he took down Tyron Woodley and he's taking down other guys. I thought Thompson should have used more lateral movement to not be a stationary target. He was, and I also don't think he threw enough. Like when you're on the feet and you have the advantage feet, you have to start scoring points. You got to start doing more. Like even the second round, I gave all 3 rounds to Burns. I know some people gave, I think, the second round to Thompson. Mm-hmm. But Burns, to me, was able to steal that round. While Thompson was landing the better shots, he still didn't land enough. You know what I mean?
I agree. Like, didn't throw enough volume. And I know that the bladed stance always makes it, like, it sets you up to bounce in and out of range rather than to move laterally quite as easily. But I agree with you there as well. Like it made him, I think, a little easier target for Burns' entries. But man, I mean, obviously there's the stereotype since 1993 is that the Brazilian guys are great grapplers, but they aren't great conventional wrestlers. So they either learn how or they just end up learning other ways to get the fight to the ground. You know, you either become Jacare and just develop real good double leg, or you become, Damian Maia and you develop a good single leg, but mostly a bunch of other things you can work to off of that. Burns has become more like the Jacare thing.
That's right.
Like I would say, and it's probably because he's been training in the States for so long with an American team, but he shoots a double leg like a good college wrestler.
Yeah. Wow.
It is fast and it is powerful and he knows how to finish. So good.
Yeah. No, he's good. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it was bad for the UFC that
Burns beat Thompson?
I think it is.
Yeah, it's not a disaster because Thompson's near the end of his career anyway. He would have been a substantial underdog against Usman, but it does hurt him in the short run because now they're like, well, what do we do 6 months from now?
I think about it like this. Thompson's 38 years old, so he's kind of at the end of his career. You kind of had a very limited window to use him. Now that's kind of been closed. On top of that, you have a guy that everybody likes. Like even the casual fans, like even knew who Thompson was. Like, oh, he's just a nice dude. Everyone kind of likes him. They, you got him on the right week in the UFC. You watch the countdown show with Conor, and you see him driving a bus and picking up kids, and just seemed like a great person. But so that happened, but also you have the stylistic. And while I agree with you, I would have favored Usman and probably would have picked him. You have that question mark. Like he hasn't faced me yet. Wow, this elusive striker. Usman has beaten great strikers, but he's never faced a striker like with the style of Thompson, the undefeated kickboxing record, his high kicks from any direction, that kind of went. And now you have Burns, who's really in a tough spot because you're kind of lining up contenders, for Usman, who's holding up the division by not fighting anybody yet and not getting booked with anybody yet. What do you do with this guy now? Because he went a nice run. He got the title, did good early against the champion, but Colby Covington's ahead of him. Leon Edwards is ahead of him,
or should be.
Should be
ahead of him. That's the problem because Burns he's already at the top because he kind of skipped the line a little bit to get to the top. are really no fights he can take that don't look like a step down, even though they're probably appropriate competitively.
That's right.
You know, like it's a shame that he and Covington didn't fight each other on the way up, but he wasn't on the way up in this division when Covington was, because he also jumped so fairly recently to 170. You know what the thing that sucks is, I don't think I would have favored. Well, I wouldn't have favored Thompson over Usman, but I don't even think I would have given him as good a chance against Usman as Edwards or Covington. But I wanted to see it more than either of those two.
Yeah, it's intriguing. It's a very intriguing matchup, and we've already seen him fight those two.
Yep.
The Bass said he headed the matchmaking story. It was an intriguing matchup. I was really interested in Burns versus Thompson from a X's and O's sense and technical breakdown sense. But I understand the issues, because if you're trying to line up a guy in the title picture, you don't want to put the guy who's not in the title picture. Like, you want to put two guys where the winner is now definitely cemented in, not where the loser is not cemented in. I mean, sorry, the winner, the loser is out, as in Thompson, and then Burns just, you already saw it. So it's like, you kind of just wasted a contender.
This is not the kind of contender matchup that the UFC used to make. They used to make these kind of fights so that it was a win-win for the UFC no matter what happened in the cage. That was not the case tonight. Like, well, you asked to kind of start off this conversation, was this a loss for the UFC? They didn't used to make this kind of matchup. It would have worked out great if Thompson had won. Now it's not going to work out great. Boss saying that he hated this matchmaking, I agree. The only reason I didn't complain any louder is because I loved the actual fight.
Yeah, me too.
If they booked like, I don't know, Thompson versus Edwards or something, I would have been screaming at him. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you smashing up your two most interesting, next challengers for Usman together? But I wouldn't have liked that fight. Because I liked this fight, I didn't complain about it as much.
Yeah. So Thompson, let me ask you, we got to move on, but Thompson, like, do you ever think he'll fight for a title? Because I don't think it's going to happen. Like, ever again.
I don't see his route there again. I don't see anyone in the division right now that he could beat next and make that, and that would be enough to justify a title shot.
Yeah.
Except for Edwards, and they better not fucking do that to Edwards.
Absolutely. So. And knowing Edwards, that's probably going to happen. So let's talk about Burns, because you're in a really tough situation. Covington or Edwards, I think both guys deserve. I actually think Edwards deserves it more than Covington, but it sounds like they go on Covington. I don't think it's right for Edwards to have to fight Burns. I would not make that matchup. I will tell you what I would do with Burns. I would give Burns Michael Chiesa if Chiesa beats Vicente Luque. If he does it, so now that's like your number three. It'd be Covington, Edwards, Burns, or in my case, Edwards, Covington, Burns, Chiesa, I should say. But the other one, so he's throwing Masvidal. I don't want to do Masvidal thing, because to me, I have Masvidal sitting on the sidelines for one reason. His next fight to me would be against Colby Covington, no matter what. Colby Covington wins the title, Masvidal jumps the line. Does he deserve to jump the line? Absolutely not. Do you waste a chance to book Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal, two former roommates, best friends, all this, now turn bad blood in the title? Sure. You're saying no. You don't blow that chance. But on the flip side, Covington loses. They're both coming off losses. It still works. But the other fight I would do, so if Chiesa doesn't win, he's not going to fight his best friend Vicente Luque. I would do. I mean, I'm talking about big step down, Neil Magny. It's just one of those, like, sucks to be you, dude.
Oh, I mean, you mean Luque and Burns?
Burns, yeah, like Burns and Luque won't fight each other.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't fight each other.
That's what I would do. What would you do with Burns?
Any of those, or if they want to give him even more of a step back to say, dude, you need some breathing room, maybe the winner of Khamzat Chimaev and Jing Liang Li.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Because the thing is, if Chimaev beats Lee, they're going to start beating the drum for him to get a title shot immediately.
Right.
The UFC is just looking for any excuse to do it.
Can I get really off topic?
Please.
I want to get really off topic. I mean, we're still going to take MMA, but really, like, not tonight. I hate the idea of this rumored fight of Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz. And I'll tell you what. I don't think it benefits UFC at all. You've been waiting for Nick Diaz to return for 5 years, 7, whatever, how many years it's been forever. And I understand there's a bit of a, long time coming rematch against Robbie Lawler. I was actually one of the fans who saw it when it actually happened, not years later on UFC Fight Pass. But to me, Diaz's name is so big. Why are you going to waste it on Robbie Lawler, who's at the end of his career, going to retire, doesn't benefit you going forward? Why don't you give it to Chimaev? This is the guy you want to make a star. You book him against Diaz. You make him a star by beating Diaz. To me, it was like the best fight you possibly could book. Why would you not book that fight?
The reason that Boz may have brought up Masvidal is that Burns wants Masvidal.
No, I know he does.
Oh, okay. Then you're just saying he shouldn't get what he wants.
Jennifer Meyer also wants to fight Amanda Nunes again after one win.
There you go.
But
yeah.
So what do you think about? We'll get back on the topic. But what do you think about the Chimaev Diaz fight? That's the way I would have went. Not Robbie Lawler.
That would work for me. And if I'm gonna be the kind of like heartless, cynical UFC, knowing that Diaz is going to do this and win or lose, he's never going to fight again. Like he's going to disappear for another 5 years. And at that point, he'll be 41. Just get the best value you can out of it.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
That you believe in, and it's just going to grind the living crap out of Diaz. It's going to be a miserable fight. Diaz will be salty afterwards.
Yeah. I think about you put Diaz against Robbie Lawler, you got a one-time thing. You got a one shot. Like, okay, well, you had a great night. We got Diaz. We got other people turn in. Maybe Robbie wins, maybe Diaz wins, but that's the end of it. You put Diaz against Chimaev. Chimaev beats the crap out of Diaz, and then Chimaev gets that bump going forward.
Yep.
So it's not just a one-night thing. You've used him to spring him forward. But Thompson, I'm going to do something real quick with Thompson. It's a long road. Where's the road start? If he wants to get to a title shot, and he's
going to need to wait for somebody that loses one of these, like, you know, the loser of Usman and Covington.
I don't think he's going to get that.
No, I don't think he's going to get that either. Honestly, he wouldn't be a bad person to put against Chimaev versus Lee either.
I thought about it. The name I covered was Santiago Ponzinibbio as a fight night co-main event.
Fight night co-main event would be an absolute burner. And Ponzinibbio, I shouldn't say this like just a couple hours after I was proven wrong and thinking that Thompson would handle Burns, but I think he'd probably do Ponzinibbio about like he did Luque, just kind of outclass him.
Maybe. But I feel like a guy, and you're probably right, but I feel like a guy kind of, he's kind of deserved like a Stephen Thompson. You ready to move on?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Before that, we had Greg Hardy take on Tai Tuivasa. Greg Hardy pointed to the middle of the cage and asked Tai Tuivasa to stand in the middle of the cage and throw it on. It wasn't exactly the middle of the cage. It was more near towards the end of the cage. But he did,
in fact, get what he wanted.
But basically, Tuivasa gave what he wanted. And be careful what you ask for. Before I make a comment, just I don't have a question. Just talk about what happened. And
okay,
I'll give you my comment.
I mean, my thought on it is I picked Hardy by first round knockout, but acknowledge that every second this goes after, basically every second this goes favors Tuivasa more and more. Mm-hmm. I liked Tuivasa's approach coming out, went with the leg kicks. He clearly watched the Castro fight, and he was like, well, what if I did that and just didn't stop doing that the first time I got punched? Like, what about that? Like, what a great idea. Like, Tai Tuivasa may have been the perfect guy to carry out that plan because he throws brutal leg kicks and he's got a head like a fucking boulder. Like, he's the guy meant to carry that leg kick to completion. But he took Greg Hardy's, like, best artillery. He got punched flush a couple times.
He did.
And walked through it.
Well, he stumbled a little bit. But so I'll say this. Before I make my comments, I originally picked Tai Tuivasa, and then you convinced me to change. You convinced me to change, but I'm not going to take any credit because I changed to Greg Hardy. But this will be my comment. Because sometimes when you pick a fight wrong, you kind of have to give your respects to somebody. To me, I'm going to do this. He was the first guy to be on my bowl list. Like, he's already on my bowl list. So this is my comments about Tai Tuivasa. This is going to be disgusting, but I'm going to do it. I'm gonna do it, my man. I might spill over myself.
This is amazing. It is all I can do not to throw up right now.
Oh, I forgot to spit. I can do another one. Let me go get another beer. No. There you go.
No,
that was a Sam
Nope.
Adams Summer Ale, the newest sponsor of Sherdog.com. I spilt a little bit on me. I apologize.
And when
what else did it say?
Finishes, you're just going to carry that.
Man. What else did it say? Tuivasa is the man. And I didn't. So you go say I didn't fake it. Like I don't know if you can see my shoe. It's wet. It's nothing left in there. It's little drops coming out.
Yep.
I did it.
No, that did not look fake at all. But now, like when this program is over, you just got to walk through your house with your shoe, and everybody else is going to pour beer in it for you, like as you take your picture laugh, right?
Someone asked me how was it. Actually, not too bad. I thought it was gonna be way worse. I didn't do a sneaker. Because a sneaker got like that like fuzzy bottom. This was like an actual like dress shoe, so it's
smart,
like a leather bottom, so
didn't absorb as much.
Yeah. That said, audio listeners are going to be confused. Yeah, I guess if you didn't know, I just did a SHOEY to give my respect to the entire area of that world, the Australia, New Zealand area in Tai Tuivasa. Absolutely beautiful. Tai Tuivasa was briefly rocked. Greg Hardy went in for the kill. You cannot go in for the kill. Well, you can go in for the kill at heavyweight, but sometimes this happens. He walked right into a big shot, put him out. I'm sure many people have been waiting a really long time for Greg Hardy to be knocked out. They got what they wanted. A lot of people are going to be. I'm sure a lot of comments tonight was, "Oh, that sucked," or "Oh my God, we wasted all that money seeing injury." Oh, but at least Greg Hardy got knocked out. You know what I mean? Like I bet you that happened all across the world.
Yeah, I mean he's a deeply unpopular fighter for all the reasons you would expect. He's an unrepentant felon who skated on a technicality, and he's just an unpleasant personality. Like he's just not fun to listen to. But what I liked about it was I'm not even sure he was knocked cold. When that first punch landed, he went down, and it was the pain thing. It was like Randy versus Rico, where like his orbital was smashed, and Randy wasn't out, but he wished he was unconscious because it hurt so fucking bad.
Yeah. His eye was completely swollen shut as he stood up. Yeah, actually, I think that's a really good point. Bass, yeah, thanks. I thought I did pretty well. It went down really smooth. It almost came back up. That would have been even better. That would have been even better listening to. But I had to get my favorite beer, my Sam Summer. They go down so smooth. Little warm though. That's the only problem. I let him sit here. I was planning for a while. Tuivasa's on a streak now, 3 in a row.
3 in a row, right after losing 3 in a row. Yeah, and none of the guys he's beaten have been world beaters, but his job is secure. He's making incremental improvements, man. He's getting better. He's no longer the guy that I asked 2 years ago, does he train? Like, period. Yeah. There's no question of that now. He looks better physically. He has better command of his weapons as a striker. Yeah, he's promising. I don't know if he's a future top 10 guy, but you know what? If he wins one more, he probably is. So
yeah, no, I agree. And it was just a great moment for him. He got a big win. And I don't know anybody who doesn't like the guy. Like, yeah, I don't think he's the best fighter. Yeah, I think he's very limited, especially on the ground. But I still like him coming out to Spice Girls and talking about he wanted to fight in Vegas because he wanted to go to the pool party afterwards, and doing the shoes. I mean, it's I still think a shoe is disgusting when a complete stranger gives you their shoe and you drink out of a complete. I mean, that's kind of gross. But I can say I did one. Anything else you want to say about Tai Tuivasa?
No, not at the moment, except that I'm looking forward to his next fight.
Yeah, I love that he drank maybe 6 beers on his way out. Like that was pretty. I love that his when fights end, they usually walk out of the cage and you might see a couple steps down the stairs. Now Tai Tuivasa is a thing. You have to watch his complete exes out of the stadium. What I think would be funny if they don't force him to exit. Like let him continue. Like have the next fight come out and have Tuivasa like how funny would it be like if you're watching the fight and so like the very next fight was Thompson and Burns and you see in the background all of a sudden you see like behind them this Tuivasa like chugging 2 beers, got the gloves on and everything still. Like just let him go. Like go let him go all night. And then like eventually like hey, eventually you have to go to the doctor, but get as many free beers as you can, brother.
There you go. Hopefully they were strong enough beers to kill the germs.
Yeah, before that, Yana Kunitskaya versus Irene Aldana. Irene Aldana won by first round TKO. A little bit tells the two halves in this fight. In the half of the first round, I thought Kunitskaya looked fantastic start. She came up very aggressive, which is a good thing to do because Aldana is a little slower start. Got to the clinch, got where she wanted. But then about 3 minutes in, Aldana started finding her range, started landing the jab, getting comfortable. And then Kunitskaya made the mistake of charging in, and Aldana, as we've seen in the past now, with Caitlin Vera, and again with this, her check hook could put you out. She didn't knock out Kunitskaya completely, but she hurt her out, and that was basically the turning point. And then eventually she landed some ground and pound, and when I thought Kunitskaya made a mistake by trying to roll for, I don't like leg locks. I don't think you should go off the ankles. You have to be really good. I remember as soon as she went, one of my friends got excited because he was rooting for her, and I said, she's going to start getting an elbow in the face, and exactly what happened, and then finished. Do you give Aldana credit despite missing weight by 3.5 pounds?
I give her credit despite missing weight by 3.5 pounds because I expected her to have a substantial power advantage on the feet, but I expected Kunitskaya to be able to bully her around when they got their hands on each other, like in the clinch and in any ground exchanges. That was not the case. Like, in fact, the opposite was the case. Like Aldana dominated once they hit the ground. And that was not because she missed weight. That wasn't 3.5 pounds of water that did that. Like she just was a better fighter than I thought she was. Like that's about as good as anyone's looked against Kunitskaya, especially like since she hit the UFC. This was a great win for Aldana.
Let me ask you this: sorry to interrupt you. Would the 3.5 pounds been different in the clinch though? If she had to get down, if she drained her body,
maybe in the second or third round.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good assessment. I agree. Like early, maybe would have been a little tougher to get off the cage, but yeah, second, third round, that's where it would have made a difference.
News Restock points out that her nose got killed early. I'm sure that sucked because, I mean, Kunitskaya's nose has gotten busted up a couple of times recently, but it's distracting. Like we see it and we're like, oh, hey, bloody nose, you just got punched in the nose. But when it's you and you're trying to breathe hard and exert yourself, it is ultra distracting, and some fighters just can't stand it.
Your nose is clogged up with blood.
What I'll say is this: Aldana hurt herself really bad by missing weight because even though she has the recent loss to Holly Holm, if she had beaten Kunitskaya, I mean, the UFC, like she might be surprisingly close to a title shot right now.
Probably, yeah.
But they're not going to do that with somebody that they're worried is not going to make weight.
He has to fight one more fight now. She has to prove that she can make weight. Yep. Unless they still want to do the featherweight division and make her go up to featherweight and fight for the title there. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. But Kunitskaya, if Kunitskaya won tonight, I think she was getting a title shot. I mean, that was the question I was going to ask. If she, before we do the show, like before the fights, I kind of think of some things I might want to talk about if certain scenarios happen. That was one thing I was going to talk about. Like Kunitskaya has to be the next fight to beat the title, right? That's not the case. Aldana kind of ruined it. A little bit of a sour taste based on the weight cut, but that is a girl. You want to get in the Mexican market. Obviously, you have your first Mexican champion. She kind of referenced Brandon Moreno, so you can, she's trying to jump off on that bandwagon, rightfully so. Very smart of her to do. Some of Irene Aldana could benefit the UFC, but she's being her worst enemy right now. She really flopped in her first main event. Now she missed weight in the follow-up. Not a good time, but at least she got the win.
Got the win. And yeah, between her and Moreno, it's also kind of Mexico's two biggest gyms right now are represented there. So yeah, good stuff.
What's good? What's good? What's up, Luke? How you doing, brother? So before that, starting off the pay-per-view, Sean O'Malley went against Kris Moutinho. Now, I said before on the breakdown that I'm very familiar with Kris Moutinho. He's from this area. He trains, I don't know, half hour, 30, 35 minutes from where I live. He actually has 2 gyms. Another gym is like right in the town, right in my city that I work in. I said he wasn't UFC ready. I still think that is true. But did he? I mean, he probably gained as many fans as a losing fighter could possibly gain.
The only,
Good.
all right, I'll throw out one other. The only other fighter I can think of who did himself more good in a losing effort in his UFC debut would be Lando Venata against Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, good point. Good point. But you know, the only difference though is Sean O'Malley's hated.
Agreed.
Tony Ferguson wasn't hated. It was like
Tony Ferguson wasn't hated, and Venata actually had Ferguson in trouble. So
That's a
everyone
good
was like,
point.
"Oh, he's like a good fighter, and this fight was amazing." Where here it's just like, yeah, everybody hates O'Malley, so they were kind of quick to jump on him when he didn't slaughter Moutinho immediately. So yeah, I'm totally with you on this.
Then you also had the fact that it was on a Conor pay-per-view, so there's more eyes and stuff. Starting off the pay-per-view, yeah, though Tony Ferguson was a fight night. We'll get to the stoppage in 1 second, but Chris Moutinho, I mean, everything I said he had tons of defensive problems. Still 100% true. Maybe even worse than I said. I mean, Sean O'Malley landed every single thing he threw at him. It was incredible. Like his statistics are off the charts in this fight.
Ridiculous.
That said, I couldn't stop talking about how tough Chris Moutinho is. He didn't take a step back the entire fight. He kept walking through punch after punch. He get hit with a shot that I think, all right, he's going to go down. And instead, he takes a step forward. I was, like I said, I'm not sold on the skill set yet, but he won me over as a fan tonight.
Same here. I'll say this. You're right. He never took a step back. He kept coming forward, but it wasn't just this performative thing like, I'm just going to prove that I'm a tough guy and they'll name me the Milford Zombie.
Yeah.
He was coming forward and trying to punch O'Malley in the face.
Yeah.
Like, he landed on O'Malley plenty of times. I don't think he won even any individual 30-second block of that fight, but even in the final round, he was coming forward and he was still hitting O'Malley in the face.
And he was trying to land those leg kicks. He knew that he lost. Marlon Vera beat him by the leg kicks, and he was trying to go there. He was trying. He struggled with the distance to get in.
Yeah.
But he was trying the leg kick. He threw a lot of leg kicks.
Yep, I was wrong about this one. I thought O'Malley would just absolutely snipe him within probably. I probably second half of the first round if you pinned me down to it. Like, we both said first round, but my thought would be, O'Malley's going to want to style a little bit. He tried like ghost dribbling a basketball, whatever, but he'll get serious and he won't let this out of the first round. Nope, that dude just kept coming.
So I'll say this: he didn't snipe him, but I still feel like he did. Like, I know there's a stoppage. We'll get to the stoppage in a second, but what I mean by that is, I think it was not on O'Malley's skill set. It was more on just Moutinho. Insanely tough, wouldn't fall down, because O'Malley was doing some beautiful things. I mean, Moutinho was running into some clean right hands that would probably have knocked out Eddie Wineland and knocked out these Thomas Almeidas and the guys that he has knocked out. I think he just found the wrong guy today. He found the one guy that would not go down.
Found the wrong guy. Moutinho was just clearly not going anywhere tonight. Maybe didn't get a sense of urgency until, too late.
I'm glad you said that, because I want to talk about he kept looking up the clock. I don't know if he was worried about gassing out, them thinking that's maybe the only way that Moutinho could win. But it seemed like when he looked up and saw 30 seconds, though, then he really, like that stoppage from Herb Dean. I have an issue with the stoppage, as everyone. I think it was a horrible stoppage. Not in the sense that if this was the first round and O'Malley was dying on him, and that was like when O'Malley picked it up, he throws a 8-punch combination like he did or whatever it was and lands all of them, and then Herb Dean jumped in, I would be like, yeah, obviously this is outclassed. But to my point is, the reason why I think it was bad, what O'Malley did at that point was no worse than he did for 14 minutes before.
I completely agree with you. Now,
like, why stop it now?
Exactly.
You're watching him get punched in the face 250 times. Why 251? Too much.
See, that's my point. And people differ. Like, on the one extreme side of the spectrum is Sherdog editor in chief Mike Fridley. He doesn't think there should ever be a referee stoppage unless there's an obvious injury or the fighter's literally unconscious. He's like, otherwise, that's not the referee's job. Like, the corner should throw in the towel. I'm not with that, but there are people who were like, well, he would have taken a lot more damage. Like, it was great that they stopped with 30 seconds left. Well, then it would have been even more great to stop it a minute before that, or
That's right.
halfway through the second
That's
round,
right.
or at the end of the first. There was no point at which Moutinho was especially doing better. You were okay with him getting outstruck like 5-1 while marching forward gamely, or you weren't.
Yeah.
And regardless of how you felt about it, with like 28 seconds left was just a weird and arbitrary time to stop it.
Yeah. Thank you, News Restock. Thanks for chatting with us, man. Have a good night. Appreciate the kind words. Yeah, I 100%. The time to me of all the times you could have stopped it, I actually thought it was the first round when O'Malley dropped him, and what I mean by the first, actually the first, between the first and second, when O'Malley just dropped him right before the buzzer, almost tried killing, going for the kill, couldn't finish him off. It seemed like Moutinho was saved by the bell. Moutinho gets up, starts stumbling back to his corner. To me, that was the time. If you're going to stop it, that's when he looked worse. I actually said to my friends, I said, they need to throw in the towel. I said, his team needs to throw in the towel. And I go, they're not going to throw in the towel because no teams ever do throw in the towel. But you know what's going to happen? He's going to come on. He's going to get knocked out really bad. And I was thinking about who's the Beverly Hills guy? Got knocked out by Buckley.
Yeah. See, now I can't remember his name. I can see his Fight Finder picture.
Right. His last
Jordan
name.
Wright.
Jordan Wright. Remember when Jordan Wright was stable, was wobbling, and then they let him come out for the second round just to get brutally knocked out really bad? Like, I felt the same exact way. Like, I expected him to come out and he's gonna get knocked out really bad, and I was gonna make a nasty tweet like, "This is why you got to know when to stop." So I want to say one thing though. O'Malley was looking at the clock, and it seemed like he's like, all right, 30 seconds, I can let it all out now. And he did turn it up at that point. And there's a chance that if Herb Dean doesn't stop it, O'Malley might have put him out 10 seconds later. Like, that's a very good chance.
But if they've already gotten to that point, isn't that the fairer thing to do both to O'Malley and to Moutinho?
Yeah, no, yes, agree. Like, I'm not saying, and I don't think he would have put him out based on what we saw for 14 plus minutes.
Right, because now Moutinho doesn't get, I'm not going to say the moral victory, but he doesn't get even the cachet of having made it to the final bell.
That's right.
The detractors of O'Malley are still like, aha, you couldn't finish this, local scrub that they totally gave you as a setup fight. It becomes a lose for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And it started turning into a Rocky 1 situation to me, where it was like, wow, O'Malley's Apollo. He's so much more skilled. Moutinho doesn't have a chance to win, but maybe he can make it to the distance, and that would be, like you said, an accomplishment. And
don't let him stop this fight. Cut me, Mick.
Yeah, exactly. And then you add on to that, now Moutinho, for the rest of his career, has an extra TKO loss on his career.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not it's not like this is his first loss or anything like that. And then, like, it was a competitive fight where he could still have won. And yeah, I guess technically he had 20 something seconds left. He could have landed a haymaker or something and won. But
well, hell, I mean, on the night that we saw the main event and the way it did, and O'Malley being who he is, hell, he might have rolled over his own ankle.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. With his history, who knows? One thing I think might be a bad thing for Moutinho is a couple things. One, it's good. A big narrative is going to be Herb Dean instead of him landing so much damage, him being so much further behind Sean O'Malley. And also, when people talk about how tough and how much hard a guy is, they almost encourage that going forward. When his focus going forward should be defense.
Yeah,
it becomes almost like a badge of honor. Like, wow, look how much damage I can take. Let me get into another crazy brawl.
And it's great that you mentioned that, since we're going to be talking soon about the Nico Price fight. But yeah. A great chin is a pretty backhanded compliment for a fighter. The That's untested chin is the one you want to have.
Yeah. And a lot of times, you take the amount of damage he did in this fight and don't go down. Sometimes the best thing that happened to you would have been if he got knocked out 30 seconds in.
Yep.
Yeah. Before that, that was the main card. I'm getting distracted by a guy talking about how attractive Cris Cyborg is. But before that,
we don't know that he means Cris Cyborg. Yeah. I mean, I live here in
Houston.
Evangelista is down here in my town. I've seen him like head dent and all. He's kind of cute.
Yeah, maybe. So that was the main card. Let's go on to the prelims. Carlos Condit versus Max Griffin was a hell of a fight. I'll say this. So a couple of things that jumped out to me. One, again, it is impossible to knock out Carlos Condit. Max Griffin gave him every opportunity to go down, hit him with some clean, hard shots, and Carlos Condit did his best Chris Moutinho impression and would refuse to go down. Also, Max Griffin clearly won the fight. He stayed tighter. He was the guy that he was beating him to the punch because Carlos Condit was still throwing a lot of looping punches while Griffin was throwing tighter inside punches. But the other thing I'll say is Carlos Condit, who I thought was completely washed up, proved again that he's taking steps down. He's not the title challenger, guy who a lot of people thought should have won the title against Robbie Lawler back in the day. He's not that guy anymore, but he has at least shown that he's serviceable, where he gave Max Griffin everything he can handle.
I think he looked better here than he did in the wins over Brown and McGee. I think Condit looked better in this fight than he did in beating.
Even though he won those fights. I agree. Anything else you want to say about this one? Like, Max Griffin's gone on a roll now.
I will say this. This was the one that ended with the stream of unanswered punches to the back of the head in the final.
No,
sorry.
No, that was a Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson fight.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, that was Burns and Thompson. No, nothing else to say about this one. Good fight, good for both guys.
Yeah, there was a lot of. So we'll talk about that for a second. There was a lot of questionable refereeing. I thought, obviously, the Herb Dean style was questionable. The punches to the back of the head in a close fight, by the way. That if you take a point there, that's a draw instead of a win for Burns. And the moment where my man Michel Pereira did a triple axel butt drop on Nico Price. While he did that, he also kicked him in the face.
Yep.
And what I mean by that,
kicked the grounded opponent in the face.
Yeah, I'm making a joke about something we said on the preview show, but when Pereira did a backflip, which is cool, it was exciting, he still landed with his foot kicking Nico Price in the face, to the point where Nico Price actually looked up at the referee and tried to complain about it. But that is the next fight. So I'll say this. The relaxed Michel Pereira looks much better. I mean, he's on a roll himself. He's beaten some quality guys in a row now. I mean, Nico Price is a very quality opponent. He's a dangerous. Nico Price kind of gets categorized as a wild man, but he's very skilled. He really is. He's tough. He's eager to fight. That's a very good win. Before that, who else? He beat K.S. Williams. That's a quality win. I can't remember who was before that. Imadaev, right? Imadaev was before that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's three quality wins in a row.
It's 3 quality wins in a row, and he seems to be finding a happy medium, which I never expected he would have. When he came to the UFC, as this 24-10 dude who already had a bunch of bad losses and just this wild style, I was just like, I hope he wins enough to at least stick around because he will be hilarious. But instead, he's on, he's kind of creeping up on, and this is welterweight where you got to win 6 or 7 even to get on the radar of the top 10, but he's creeping up on it, man. And he's done it. He's still entertaining, but he's figured out a way to manage his gas tank despite being a titanic welterweight, and he still gets crazy.
Yeah,
he'll still try and a somersault guard pass, or what I mean.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I think he's learned to manage his gas tank. I don't think he's learned how to use it as a tool. It's still an Achilles heel. He was winning this fight. He was definitely more skilled. It's the first time I thought it was pretty evident. It's the first time that Nico Price was not the better athlete in a fight, or maybe Jeff Neal was a better athlete too. But a guy who's clearly has a huge athleticism advantage. He was quicker than him. He had more tools. But Nico Price, just because he's so freaking insanely tough, he made it a good fight from his insane toughness. I'm having a problem here as I have beer my legs are starting to get a little sticky. That was in case you missed it. That was when I drank a SHOEY and I spilled some beer on me too. But Michel Pereira did slow down. He lost the 3rd round because he was gassed out. I think while he's such a huge welterweight, I think it would be better for him if he just moved up to middleweight.
I'd be fine with that. I don't think he would even be a below average sized middleweight. He'd probably put on some more. He'd probably put on, some more bulk, or just be more comfortable. And maybe he would be comfortable actually leveraging pace as a weapon instead of, just trying to make sure it's not too much of a liability.
Because to me, with him slowing down, he's got so much potential, but the ceiling is or the floor is much. What am I saying? No, sorry, it's late at night. It's 2:24. The ceiling is capped because of this, because of his ability to gas, because he's going to fade late. Other guys could have turned it on in the third round and maybe put him out. Other guys in the division, like if you gassed out and say it's Jeff Neal in front of you now, or it's whoever, Michael Chiesa taking you down. You're gassed out, Michael Chiesa takes you down. He's probably choking you out. Zebra Chase mentions that middleweight needs bodies. I agree. They need contenders on top of just bodies. It's just generally more shallow division. And also athleticism, to me, I think it matters more at middleweight because that's like the weight class there isn't a lot of crazy athletes. There's tons of great athletes at welterweight.
Yeah, but at middleweight, if you're if you're a Yoel Romero, if you're a Kevin Holland, it can carry you a long ways.
Yeah, Mary Chang just mentioned that. Yeah, doing a backflip, which I'll mention was illegal with the way he landed it. Didn't intentionally mean to kick him straight, but as Mary Chang mentioned, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it was definitely a oh crap moment. Like it's always exciting when he does stuff like that. But he's right; it will gas out anybody. I mean, I guess maybe like a Olympic gymnast won't gas out by doing a bunch of backflips, but pretty much everybody else will.
Well, I picture that his Pereira's home gym is just one of those like inflatable bounce houses that you take your 6-year-olds to for your birthday.
That's how. So yeah, like so my kids go to the neighbor's birthday party tomorrow, Chuck E. Cheese, and like my son will always be wrestling. Like there'll be two kids wrestling in the bouncy area. Yeah, like that's just Michelle Behan and like a teammate. Just oh, time to train. Let's go to the Chuck E. Cheese. Imagine that they're having training camp. It's like in between like birthday parties. It's Michelle Behan like trying to practicing his new move. But you see the skill there. You really do see the skill, Michelle Behan. I'm intrigued what happens next to him. Like I said, I don't expect his next fight to be up a weight class, but I think it should be.
It should be. Just real quick, Sherdog associate editor Jay Petrie asked me. Well, he said the path to the top of middleweight is way easier than at 170. Could you imagine a fantasy fight between Adesanya and a non-Gas Pereira in like 2 years?
Oh, could you imagine
at middleweight? Yeah, that'd be a fun fight.
They would probably have a dance off or something to start the fight, and then they fight. Before that, one of the most intriguing matchups, Ryan Hall took on Ilia Topuria, and Topuria won by first round knockout. This was such an intriguing. It was short, but I was at the edge of my seat the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, Topuria, we said he had to be perfect to win this fight, and I thought he was perfect.
He was perfect. He knew what was coming from Hall. He defended it well and didn't just stand there and get mesmerized either and just congratulate himself for not getting leg locked. He made him pay for it. The other half of takedown defense is making the other guy pay for trying. That's also the other half of Imanari roll defense, apparently.
Yeah, his nickname is El Matador, and he really played the Matador tonight where he was moving out of the, not charging, but rolling bull coming at him. And I thought during the Darren Elkins fight, I said the way to beat Ryan Hall is you're going to have to punch him when he's in those positions. And Topuria took his shots. He did one here and there. And then when he finally was able to clear the legs, well, he landed some hard shots and he was able to clear the legs. He finished them off. It's a very small window. Ryan Hall would have likely 1 or 2 more seconds. He would have recovered, and then we would have had more time of him flopping and rolling. I think knees up the middle is going to be another thing when he ducks his head like that. Knees are going to be valuable moving forward. But I think one thing that happened is Ryan Hall lost a little bit of invincibility tonight.
Well, obviously that goes without saying whenever somebody takes their first loss. But yeah, it's not just that he lost. It's that Topuria showed that, okay, if you're physically faster and stronger than him and you're not a chump on the ground, you know what he's trying to do, you can stop him.
That's right. And Topuria, I was high on Topuria moving into this matchup. I've been high on for a while. I'm not going to please Jay Petrie, even though he wants us to go through the rankings and see who would beat in the Sherdog rankings right now. But I was so high on this guy, and you go out and you knock out Ryan Hall in the first round. Like, I'm even more higher now. That was a great performance.
I agree. I just hope it's much, much sooner before the next time we see Ryan Hall fight. At this point, I don't think he's gonna like probably even make it to a title shot. Probably not even make it into the top 5. His ceiling might just be a fringe top 10 guy. But damn it, if he isn't fun to watch. I made the comment on Twitter tonight that it's like seeing a knuckleball pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to see this guy doing something that looks so different from how you're used to seeing it and have it work on like world-class competitors on the other side.
Ryan Hall is like the Tim Wakefield of MMA, or he's
Oh.
he's more of a who's the R.A. Dickey. Remember R.A. Dickey had like that 1 or 2 good seasons, but he actually was like the Cy Young winner. Like Tim Wakefield had probably a better overall career, but not a higher ceiling than R.A. So maybe Ryan Hall is the R.A. Dickey of MMA. The official fighter of the Sherdog Shillen and Duffy show. Not a good night. Not a good night for Trevin Giles.
It's a good night right up until it wasn't.
Yes. As I want to make sure I say his name correctly so he doesn't hunt me down. I wrote it down, and I'm still going to mess it up. Dricus Duplessis?
Dricus Duplessis.
Dricus?
Yeah.
I still didn't say it right. Dricus Duplessis.
Yep.
Won by second round knockout. Let's talk about Duplessis for a second. This guy's now 2-0 in the UFC. One thing, his first fight in the UFC, he seemed like he had some jitters, and then he just landed the KO punch. This one was completely out. He seemed a lot more calm. Seemed like he knew he was ready there. I mean, he's got a nice track record coming in. A lot of leg kicks. He was just staying busy to be busy, scoring points. Like, he got that intelligence. Like, yeah, you don't want to do anything. I will just score points. And, added in some grappling. Really, really good showing, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, I gave Giles the first round.
Really?
And I thought, I'm pretty sure I did. Let me
take
a look.
No,
let me take a look at
I gave it for Dricus, but okay. I thought Giles didn't do enough. Like, I thought he talked about having.
Okay,
the best...
no, I gave the first round to Duplessis, but I thought Giles was doing really well. Yeah, and it was a pretty close round, but the second one I thought he was doing really well right up until the shot that put him out.
Yeah, my issue with him was my issue with Giles was what the issues I have with him a lot. One is this guy says he has the best jab in MMA and just simply wasn't throwing it enough.
Yep.
And two, I mean, you can't drop your hands, and you can't. He was looking for the perfect blow, and that never works. You have to just flow, and it'll come.
Yeah.
Instead of looking for the one punch, and he was doing that, and then you just can't drop your hands. Not with a guy who cracks like Duplessis does.
Completely agreed. It was and maybe Duplessis is going to be another one of these guys that I pick against him like wrong, like 4 times in a row to start his UFC career before I learned my lesson. Because I picked Marcus Perez against him. I picked Trevin Giles against him this time. But this was a really impressive performance. He came out with a really good game plan to beat Trevin Giles.
Yeah.
You mentioned the activity. Like, Trevin Giles has fantastic skills. He has all the individual skills of MMA at a high level, but he's not good at winning rounds some of the time because he has volume problems when he doesn't use that jab, and he's not great at checking leg kicks, and Duplessis used plenty of them.
Yeah. He showed he can grapple. He has good up, and he's got good power. Like, that's a lot of good signs moving forward. Before that, a fight that we said was going to be terrible really wasn't. Jessica Eye versus Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia won a decision. I thought it was really close. I scored it for Jessica Eye. I had it 29-28 for Eye. I give Eye the first and the third. I have no issue with anybody giving it for Maia. I thought it was close, so I don't have an issue. It came to me between output versus variety, and I thought Eye's output and Eye's ability to force Maia back, which was so surprising to me because that's not Maia's. Maia's not a big movement. She's more stand your ground, and I was shocked that Eye was pushing her back. I was also shocked that Maia never once looked for a takedown. It was actually Eye who looked for takedowns. But I also think the blood doesn't look good. I know it was a clash of heads, so it wasn't, but still always look bad when your face is covered in blood and your opponent doesn't in a close fight. But let me ask you this: how did you score the fight? Because I had it for Eye.
I scored it the same as you did. I scored it for Eye. I gave Eye the first and third. Like you, I was surprised that Maia didn't ever really try to bring it to the ground.
Shocking.
I mean, you and I are both pretty hard on Jessica Eye. But I thought this was one of her better performances, Even though
I
she
did.
lost, I thought she
I
fought to her
agree.
own best advantage pretty well.
Yeah.
That cut was gnarly. I mean, that cut was something that I think normally we would have to pay on her OnlyFans to see.
Oh, stop. Oh, stop.
Dude, it was a bad cut.
No,
Like
I
that
know.
was
I
some
know.
Marvin Eastman stuff, dude.
Yeah, when I saw Maya moving early, and I said, "Oh, she's setting up a takedown. She's pulling into her takedown," and I said, "That's actually kind of smart. You want to? It's the easiest way to get a takedown is having them over pursue." And then when she wasn't going for takedown, I go, "Whoa, now I really am surprised." I didn't. I mean, Maya won. We picked Maya to win. Both of us picked Maya to win. Went down much different. One she got one fight winning streak. She's talking about getting a title shot now. That's absolute nonsense. But
She's still below 500 in the UFC. I mean,
is she really? Wow.
Yeah, she's like 6-8 now.
Yeah. Yeah. Ty C is I don't know. He's coming after Greg Hardy. Yeah, it was not a good night for Greg Hardy. Shout out to Marvin Eastman. We got a Marvin. Did we someone? Was it the the Marvin Eastman cut? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. It's almost 3:00 in the morning. I'm losing it a little bit. Yeah. Shout out to Marvin Eastman. Love those feints. Joe Rogan, love those feints. Before that, Brad Tavares versus Omari Akhmedov. So I always said I was really surprised how the Jennifer Maia fight went. Not that she won, but just how it actually went down. I felt like me and you hit this fight dead perfect. Like exactly how it was going. That Akhmedov would get a takedown, that he would come out early looking good, and then he would kind of fade as Tavares made him work for takedowns, started landing from outside, landing his leg kicks, a lot more leg kicks than I expected, and just picked him apart for the next 2 rounds. This, to me, was perfect.
It was this. I feel like I've said this about a couple of fighters tonight, but this was Brad Tavares fighting his best fight.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
This was a perfect Brad Tavares performance. Like, Tavares, he's carved a great, a great career out of, just joining out of Tough as a not very heralded guy. But this is the perfect Brad Tavares performance. He's not a dude that just knocks people out in 90 seconds. He avoided risk. He leveraged his strengths against Akhmedov's weaknesses, and he won a pretty straightforward fight. Like, good for him, dude.
Yeah, I liked how when Akhmedov was fading that Tavares went the other direction. He started turning it up. Like he was getting stronger. Even at the end, when it seemed like, all right, you got 2 rounds of 1, he was like stepping in, trying to put the fight away. Really, really complete performance by Brad Tavares. And opening the card, Zalgiris. I'm messing this one up. Zalis Zamagilov. Did I say that right? So tell me.
Zhalgas Zhumagulov.
Okay,
yeah.
Zhumagulov, Jerome Rivera. Rivera came out with a great strategy. He actually was trying to. We talked about the breakdown that he doesn't like to use range. He was trying to use range until he got cracked, and Zhumagulov jumped on a guillotine, and it was a gnarly one. It was as deep as you see.
Yeah, nasty guillotine. They pointed out right away on the broadcast that it was the choke of a guillotine with like the pain of a neck crank because Rivera's head was stuck against Zhumagulov's chest. And there's already all the mechanical advantage that Zhumagulov has by being shorter, by having short arms. And Rivera's like I called him a praying mantis at 125. That was a nasty looking guillotine.
Yeah, I think you call him short and stumpy. I think that was.
I called Zhumagulov short and stumpy. Yeah, he's short and stumpy.
So the short and stumpiness worked out for him tonight as he got his first UFC win. So there you go, guys. We've covered all 12 fights. Let's get into the closing fun stuff. Want to do a cut list real quick?
Absolutely.
So the way the cut list works, guys, is if me and Ben both agree that a fighter should no longer be in the UFC, they get officially put on the Schillen and Duffy cut list. They have to be on both of our lists to make it on the show list. We do this not so much as a negative, but more opening the doors for other people, newcomers like a Kris Moutinho. I have one person on my list. How many do you have?
I have one.
Jerome Rivera.
It is Jerome Rivera.
There you go. He's 0-4 in the UFC now. It's a shallow division. It's flyweight, but you still got to win.
Hypothetical. If Jerome Rivera had won in like uncontroversial fashion, would you have cut Zhalgas Zhumagulov?
Yes.
At 0-3. Okay.
Yeah, that was a loser leaves town fight.
Okay.
Let's go into the Bulls and the Bears stuff. The Bulls and Bears is a stock market type reference game where the Bulls is when a stock is going good, it's going up. So they're the ones who had a good night. Bears are those who had a bad night. Their stock is going down. We can do it hockey style. You can pick 3 stars of the night. So number one being like, if you're a bull and you're the number one bull, you're the biggest winner of the night. If you're the number one bear, you're the biggest loser. Let's go. Let's do bulls. Let's keep it positive. I'll go first. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right. My number 3 bull who had the best night is, and I apologize if I say his name wrong. Don't beat me up. Dricus du Plessis.
Okay.
He's now 2-0 in the UFC. His 2 knockouts. He's only 27 years old. All the hardcore fans are sold on him. I thought he had a really great performance. I think people could continue to be excited about this guy. And I thought he won the post fight. Like, the post fight is just as important as the fight, making them say my name over and over again, saying, I'll be a household name soon. I just thought he did very well. My number 2 is Ilir Topuria. Oh man, I'm losing it. Topuria.
Okay.
Undefeated. He's 24. He's 3-0 in the UFC. Came from Brave FC, a good organization. Knocked out the guy that supposedly nobody wants to fight in Ryan Hall. This guy to me already looks like a top 15. Ilir Topuria. And my number 1, most people would probably say Dustin Poirier beating Conor McGregor. It's not. My number 1 is Tuivasa, and I'll tell you why. He's won 3 fights in a row. He beat Greg Hardy, who's everybody's been calling to not only get beat, but knock him out. He knocked him out on a Conor McGregor show. He gets to go to the pool party, and then he just won it, like, doing a SHOEY in the cage. My phone was blowing up more about that than during the Poirier-McGregor fight. Hitting, like, 6 bears on the way out. Just the Spice Girls song. Like, everybody seems to love this guy. So my biggest winner, Tuivasa. Who are your 3 bulls?
Mine overlap yours a bit. So what I'll just add is completely agree in the case of Topuria, because the UFC has a number of like kind of super prospects that not just by winning fights, but by the optics of how they've looked in winning fights, they've just got a little bit of a special tag on them. And there's something special about passing your next big test with completely flying colors. And the way he beat Hall, it reminds me of Giga Chikadze just lancing Cub Swanson.
Okay.
Where everyone was like, oh, this will be a good test. He'll probably win, but this should be a good test, and just trashes him like he's nothing.
Yeah, passed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like didn't just pass it, but like made the UFC go, okay, we maybe should skip the next hurdle too. This guy looks
right. Ready. Yeah.
So that's a huge win. Kris Moutinho.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing he could have done like that would have been better for himself than this. I'm serious. Like
maybe block the punch.
Well, okay, block the punch was something other
maybe
than his
one.
nose.
Maybe just block good. One punch to show he actually can block a punch.
Do a little wax.
Just once.
But seriously, if he landed a wild hook and just iced O'Malley, or if O'Malley had gassed out so badly that Moutinho mounts this incredible comeback and chokes him out in the 3rd round, all the talk would have been about how O'Malley's overrated and he's a bust.
That's right.
All this did was prove that Kris Moutinho has balls of steel.
That's right.
Like honestly, this almost is the best thing he could have done for himself tonight.
Yeah, and he's not buying any drinks in Milford, Mass for a while.
No. Is Milford nice?
I don't know if I've been to Milford, to be honest. I think it's on the other side of Fall River. I've been to Fall River where he trains, and it's not.
I've heard the Fall River is not nice.
It's a rough area. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember some Massachusetts
I'm
guy.
I'm sure I've been to Milford, but
he was like, Tom Lawler seems really nice, unlike everybody else from Fall River. So it's like that's. But number 1 has to be Tuivasa, because you're right. It wasn't just a win; it was a star-making win.
Yeah.
How many casual fans tuned in tonight that watched 2 or 3 pay-per-views a year? They will remember this guy, and the hardcore fans, because I mean the hardcore fan contingent, by and large, doesn't like Greg Hardy.
No.
He is a hero to them. Like this was a level up moment for Tuivasa in terms of visibility in the division.
That's right.
Like, people won't confuse him with like Ben Sassoli and other kind of just kind of stocky Australian heavyweights anymore. That's Tuivasa. That's the shoe guy. That's the dude who walked into the Spice Girls. And he didn't just walk into the Spice Girls. He's singing and dancing. Yeah, he rules. That was a great night for him.
Yeah. Yeah, good call. Let's go to the Bears. These are the guys who did not have a good night. I'll let you start it.
Trevin Giles. This was a winnable fight for Trevin Giles. He was doing well, but the thing that cost him the first round is a known problem. Just activity, not checking leg kicks. The thing that cost him the fight is another thing that's a known problem. Dropping his hands, being there to be hit.
Looking for the one punch.
Looking for the one punch. Because, I mean, he's a, on talent, he is a fantastic fighter. He's still just 28, plenty of time to turn it around. If not, still, he's a guy you don't want him to pull you over in Houston. If he does, don't try to run.
That says it. His parents thought it was just a Taffa. Yeah, what is up with Greg Hardy getting matched with all those kind of guys? Since I thought it was Mark.
Number 2, Greg Hardy. Even leaving aside like his problematic criminal past, his kind of villainous nature, it's outside of the cage stuff. Inside the cage, this was a clean knockout loss.
That's right.
And even, I mean, when I talked on the preview, I was like, he's not gotten any better at the things he was bad at. Like his defensive grappling is still terrible. His gas tank is still bad, but his striking had been improving surprisingly well. Like, Tuivasa outclassed him badly. Like, he was badly out of position when he got clocked. He was over pursuing. His head was out there, and Tuivasa just hit him with a perfect counter.
Yeah, one thing we said nice about him on the broadcast, I mean on the preview, was that we haven't seen his chin checked yet. Now we have.
No, we've seen his eyeball checked. Right. Again, I'm not going to be a keyboard warrior about this. I mean, you punch me and break my orbital, I'm probably going to go fetal too and be like no mas.
Yeah,
but dude, he wasn't unconscious. He just did not like the way that felt.
No.
That's, but yeah, like this was a bad night for him because the UFC is going to have an even tougher time now selling the thing that, he has the lights out power. He can put out anybody. No, he rocked a non-top 15 heavyweight and then got his clock clean 5 seconds later.
And he got too aggressive. He got knocked out.
Yeah. Number 1, Conor McGregor. It's not fair in some ways, but at the same time, it would have been even worse if he hadn't hurt his ankle because I think he was on his way to like a humiliating loss. I mean, I predicted coming into this fight that he'd look better than in the first fight and that this will probably make it to the 3rd or 4th round. No, if that had made it to the end of the round, like if I would have been looking at the live odds for a finish in the second by Poirier.
Yeah. All right. I get to my 3. So this is the first time I pick all 3 from the same fight. My number 3 is Dustin Poirier. And I'll say why he's a loser. Now, obviously, you got to win over Conor McGregor. You got a big payday. It's good. But he's not going to get a credit for the win. He's still going to have, when he clearly should be past Conor McGregor at this point, have won the trilogy, which obviously he did. But in a lot of people's eyes, it's still going to be Conor got hurt. It was a fluke thing. And instead of saying, you know what, we got to start asking the question of these checking leg kicks. I don't know if it was check leg kick. So actually, we didn't even talk about this in the beginning. I don't know if it was check leg kick. It could have been simply just a freak injury. It could have been, Conor's, Poirier said it happened when Conor went to throw a kick at him. Another thing I was thinking was when he was throwing up kicks, and he's throwing up kicks, and Poirier's not only is he kind of come down, so his foot's going up, Poirier's kind of coming down on his foot a couple of times. It could have happened. It could have been a lot of reasons. I have no idea what had happened, but that's the question. No one knows. Was it a freak thing? And that's what's going to happen. It's always going to have a little bit of controversy, and that's something where Poirier. And I also know Poirier, like, he had moments, but like taunting a guy who has a broken leg, that doesn't look good. Even if he's such a dick, and you're always take the high road, and he actually tried at the end, like, I hope he goes back to his family healthy. That kind of came off as fake after you were just taunting the guy and calling him a piece of shit when he has got a broken leg. Even if he's still mouthing off to you, dude, sitting there with a broken leg, dude. I don't know. I thought it was a bad look from Poirier. My number 2 loser, Conor McGregor. It's, as we said in the beginning of the show, if you've ordered pay-per-view, Conor McGregor's last 5 pay-per-views, he's lost 4 of them. Counting Floyd Mayweather. You eventually have to win. He is completely out of the title picture, and he's out of competition at least. Well, he's lost the trilogy to Dustin Poirier, and he's out of the competition for probably a year, if not longer. And when you were actually in the cage, you were losing.
Yep.
So not a good night for him. But
this keeps happening to Dustin Poirier. I mean, he was well on his way to beating Eddie Alvarez, and it ended in controversy. He ended up having to fight him again and just kind of set him back.
Yeah, this guy seems like he'll never get credit. Like, even when he had like that incredible performance against Max Holloway, it was, well, Max Holloway moving up in weight, not really the same size. Holloway's a 45-pounder. If they were the same size, would he have won? Like, there's always things with this poor guy. But to me, the number one loser, it goes with the same fight. It's the UFC. At the end of the day, the UFC needs Conor to win, and when Conor loses, that's never good. And now you have your biggest star out for a year. And imagine what the Conor McGregor versus Charles Oliveira pay-per-view would have done. Now compare it to a Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. They lost millions of dollars tonight. Fight Conor being on the shelf longer and not in the position. So to me, the biggest losers, and not to mention the casual fans that are turning in and watching, they gotta say, oh, not a fight ended with eye poke, not a fight ended by groin strike. Now we got a fight ending with freak injuries and this and that. I don't know who's wrong. Is Chris Holland says, "No, you're wrong. Conor got exactly what he deserved." I don't know who's he. Is he talking about me by saying Poirier shouldn't taunt the broken leg? Is that what he's saying? Yeah, if you think that, I don't. I think you should take the high road. Like, sometimes you don't need to taunt somebody. You already won.
Yeah, sure.
But that comes down to people's character.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in making any excuses for Poirier. He's a grown man.
Yeah.
But my guess would be that he got emotional in the moment and angry
and
said something he probably regrets now.
Yeah.
And I can say that because this is not his usual style.
Yeah, that's a good
McGregor,
point.
That's just called Tuesday. Like, talking shit about people's wives being in your DMs is just that's it. No,
absolutely.
Tuesday.
I wrote that down. That was actually I should have said earlier. Yeah, absolutely right. I didn't like the whole wife thing. Like, I enjoy the trash talking, but I always think there's moments when you knock a guy out, you don't have to really trash talk him. You already kind of won. Like, I didn't like when Jorge Masvidal knocked out Ben Askren and it was like taunting right next to his body. Like, that guy could be seriously hurt. I don't like the taunting a broken leg. I don't. But yeah, trash talk's fine, but don't bring people's families into it. Like that. She's not part of the fight. Leave her out of it. She seems like a nice, wonderful woman. Like, and not even taking her apart, but like, you're saying things about it. And you got people. Look, you got two people on the other side of the world, the other side of the country, talking about some lady and what her character is. So, yeah, and I know they saying about, Poirier said it because of Conor death threats. Like, say I'm going to murder you. Like, people heard that a million times. I'm going to kill this guy. Like, that's not crossing the line. Like, everyone said, no fighter said I'm going to kill this guy and actually thinks I'm going to take this guy's life. No one actually thinks that.
But that used to be considered over the line. Like, Frank Mir got destroyed for like saying that he wanted to make Brock Lesnar the first Octagon casualty. Like, he lost his WEC commentating job for that.
Yeah.
But that's the difference of 10 years. Like, it's apparently not too much anymore.
Yeah, but I think it's a little different. Like, I'm going to kill this guy is a little different than like, I really want this guy to die. But I mean, it is whatever. Like, and you're right. If Poirier apologizes or taunting him or whatever, like, you're right. It probably was just an emotional response because that is not Dustin Poirier. So, anyway, still at the end of the day, it was a really bad day for the UFC when Conor loses. So, let's go to the last thing. What's your grade?
B-.
Yeah.
Like, some of the fights that I didn't expect to deliver did, but some of the fights that I did expect to deliver didn't, and they were some of the really big ones. For something that looked on paper like one of the more interesting cards of the year, I can't call it anything but a slight disappointment.
Yeah. I feel I was going like a C+. Like, I had it like well on its way to an A. Like, well way on its way to an A. Like, it looked fantastic. And then the co-main event was just an okay fight, and then the main event. I was entertained the whole time during the main event for the 5 minutes, but it's still not how I want the fight to end. And I understand that these type of injuries have now actually become part of the game, and it seems more like a skill thing than just a freak thing. But it's still not how anybody wants the fight to end. Unless hold on, I shouldn't say anybody. There are some shitbag people out there who actually want to see Conor McGregor's leg broken. Well, if you do, you're a shitbag.
Yep.
If you honestly want to see any fighter seriously hurt, sitting on the sidelines for a year. I grew up in New England. I had New England sports. Obviously we have rivals. Patriots versus Colts. I hated Peyton Manning. I didn't want to see him break his neck or his arm or any stupid shit. Derek Jeter and the Yankees. I didn't want to see Derek Jeter. If you want to see a fighter seriously badly hurt, you're a piece of shit.
Yep.
Like the problem is not their character, it's your character.
Sure.
And the same people saying, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad Conor's leg broke." Would if they saw Conor at the mall, would ask to take a picture with him or whatever. You know what I mean? Anyways, let's not get on a tangent. It's almost 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Overall, I think it was, I was entertained. This leaves a lot more to talk about. The chat is booming, guys. We're closing the show up, but it seemed like a lot of people watching live. We thank you guys for watching. I think you guys, there's way too many people to name tonight in the chat. We tried to follow the chat as much as possible, but you guys, sometimes they get a little away. But thanks so much, guys. We do this every single week, so don't just show up for the big ones. We'll be back here. Me and Ben will be back here next week. We have the breakdown show. We'll be breaking down. What is it? Is
Makhachev versus Moises.
Oh,
the
yes.
return of Miesha Tate.
Yeah. So we'll be breaking down that card and all the UFC cards. So we'll do a breakdown on Wednesday. Make sure you check that out, and then we do the live recap right after the event. All right.
Yep.
So for Ben, I am Keith. See you guys next time.